Hi everyone, thank you for coming. Thank you for the opportunity and everything else. Today I would like to share some of the techniques to bypass 2FA with the focus on the private keys. So how to bypass 2FA? Well, in short, you must obtain something user has. Generally, this could be either OTP or private keys, unless you find a way to disable the 2FA. So you're probably seeing OTP every day, such as when you're doing internet banking or when you log into the online accounts, especially the website that apply very strict security measurements. You can also find OTP in your text message, your voice, and your software token that install on your smartphone. But the point is, how do you get somebody's OTP? Basically, you need to hack their voice accounts, their SMS accounts, or you have to compromise their software tokens, such as Google Authenticator, or you have to perform social engineering. So this is a real-life example to get OTP by social engineering attacks. I believe most of you have a Gmail account. If you have a Gmail account, you probably have received something similar. And if you reply to this SMS, I suggest you change your account password now. How does this work? Attacker, first, they know your Gmail account, they know your Gmail address, they know your mobile number. They will try to reset your Gmail password and have the OTP delivered to your mobile phone. Then they will SMS you something similar to the test above and ask for OTP. Once you reply with the OTP, they could proceed to reset your password and then compromise your mailbox. So once the attacker inside your mail account, they will proceed to the security setting and disable the 2FA support. Another way to get OTP is using malware. So Benkosi is a Trojan horse that infects Android device. Once this malware installed on the Android device, it will intercept the codes that form the two-factor authentications. You then do two things: communicate with the CNC server, secretly sending the sensitive info to attacker. Then it will also perform call forward, because in some country there is a loophole in the telephone carrier service that allow user to dial a specific number to enable call forwarding. So that means even the OTP is sent across by voicemail, it is defenseless for this malware. Another way to get OTP is if you can sniff the wireless signal to capture the text messages. There are devices available. I mean, I saw some of them in DEF CON, so maybe you want to check that out on internet. If you can predict lottery number, you probably can apply the same techniques to predict OTP. Usually, there are 3 incorrect OTP attempts allowed. After that, you either get banned temporarily or you will have to restart the whole process again. So cloning the SIM card, you can receive the OTP as well. Or you use IMSI Catcher. This device can allow you to set up fake mobile tower. It can hijack and intercept phone signals, including voice and text messages, usually targeting phones on the older 2G system because they cannot tell the difference whether it's real or fake tower. It also blocks the 3G and 4G signals, forcing the mobile phones nearby to switch to unsecure 2G service. And it's frequently used in rural areas because 2G service is more common. Okay, private keys. To get the private keys and to bypass the 2FA, you must first locate the target that supports key-based authentications. Most private keys are protected by passphrase, so after you got the private key, the next thing to do is to crack it before you can use it. Or you can extract it from the memory, such as from the SSH agent. Certificates can contain both public and private keys. Certificates that contain the private keys are also stored in the physical device, such as the USB token, the smart cards, and other physical forms. Again, the certificates are normally stored encrypted in physical device. You have to crack it even though you got it. Sometimes by mistake, the users can connect the USB token to computer and allow them to be shared as a map network drives. Therefore, when you found them, you mount these network drives, you might find the certificates or key files by surprise. If you could not get the passphrase, you can still try to get useful file information from it. Let's say for P12 certificate, it is worth trying to extract the file info using OpenSSL or Key2. Sometimes a simple keyword can get you a bigger picture of the target external environment. So if the OTP or private key were compromised, what will be the impacts? Who will suffer the most? For the web app that use Google Authenticator, such as Gmail, WordPress, Outlook, or Google Play, if the OTP will compromise, so does the user account. So for the application that use single sign-on with two-factor authentication enabled, compromise a client certificate to allow access to many different accounts belonging to that affected user. So because single sign-on only requires user to authenticate once, software vendor that lost the private keys will ended up being accused for distributing malware to users because the stolen private key can be used to sign malicious software. For the website owner, if the server's private key is compromised, the attacker can spook the user by creating a phishing site. The servers, most likely the Linux-based servers that use public key authentications. Two major issues with the PKA are the passwordless authentications and authorized abuse. So if you can find these settings in your SSH configuration file, you need to rectify immediately because the password authentication is set to no. So there's no password. The screenshot on the right shows many entries in the authorized keys file. Although having too many public key entries in your authorized key file does not directly cause any problem. However, in the case, in the future, if one of the public key were arbitrarily added to the file or one of the private key has been compromised, and it will task to remove the affected keys immediately from all the affected user accounts, wouldn't that be a haptic to you? So are you, let's say if there are 200 entries in the file, are you able to detect the anomaly immediately and respond to it? Therefore, it is always recommended to keep the authorized file neat and small. So the tool, it is best to understand the CommSec, how to work around with the two-factor authentications. The tool is only there to help you if you need assistance. If you know how things work, you can always bypass 2FA security manually. Private key leaks were commonly associated with issues that caused by the older version of the Bash shell, cryptographic libraries, and OpenSSL. So for the product that implement this affected software, no doubt they also suffer the same fate. You can also use the tool to check across this issue without having to do it manually. There are many ways to steal private keys even without using existing exploit. If the server is not hardened, you open up many loopholes for an attacker to access the system and download away the private keys. If the secure password policy was not enforced, the account never logged out upon password guessing attempts. It's only a matter of time for attacker to brute force in and extract away the private keys. Malware and spyware activities were often found together with social engineering attackers to steal private keys. So let's start the demonstration soon. I will demonstrate the process of stealing the private keys from the network, then using the root keys to access more accounts on the network. At this point, we don't have the target yet, so we must first start to enumerate the network. Okay, let's talk about the enumeration. You will never know what's on the network. You can choose a few scanning modes to run, depending on the network environment. Advanced mode is more like firewall evasion scan. The web scan is required for heartbleed, shell shock, vulnerability in order to find the potential URL. And the hidden network requires RP scan. You can choose super scan. That will do all, but it will take more times. Auto mode is the simplest way to check everything. This process will start by network enumerations because we need to build up the target database first to get a list of what hosts are up, what services are running, which ports are open. Once you have the host information, it will launch each module against the targets in the database with a primary focus on getting the keys. Finally, it will use the root keys to perform key-based authentications. Besides enumerating for live hosts on the network, we also need to find out which host is accepting key-based authentications. If a host does not support PKA, there is no way we can authenticate it using stolen private key. So how do you know if a host supports PKA? You can just establish SSL connection using debug mode. Then look for the keyword next authentication method public key. If you didn't see that keyword, it means the remote host doesn't support public key authentication at all. Or you can just use this tool to check it out for you. The command is there. So let's run the SSH attack to get a key. Let's start a demo. Okay. So we just run a quick enumerations for demonstration purpose. Okay, after that, just launch the SSH attacks using the tools. It will start with a brute force. In this case, the hosts have been set using easy password, so we managed to get in the systems. The tool will download away some of the important info. And then the most important thing is it will download both public keys and the private keys of each host. After that, it will start the authentication process, the key-based authentications. Okay, we see one of the PK authentication success. The tool will also output some important information which is valuable for later manual verification usage. It's like here, which machine can be accessed by what users. Yeah, and stuff like that. Okay, client certificate authentications. The client certificate is the type of digital certificate that is used by client system to make authenticated requests to a remote server. Nowadays, more and more SSL websites require client system to acquire digital certificate before visiting the site. So the traditional method for website to authenticate user is using the username and password and checking the user's source IP like firewall does before allowing user to hit the protected site. This method is ineffective and not recommended for users that always need to move around different regions. Let's say we found a P12 file during the test. We first start by analyzing the file. Why do we analyze it? Because we want to determine the best method to extract the private keys. Then we proceed with the dictionary attacks and then brute force attacks. Always use the tool to launch dictionary attacks first before the brute force attack, because the brute force will try all kinds of permutation and it will take a long time. The P12 file is in binary format. Inside the certificate, you can find both public and private key and some other information. Just like a regular compressed file, it is passphrase protected and also susceptible to password cracking. So let's dissect into the certificate. Okay, this is the whole process, the entire process. We already done analyze certificates and we have done cracking the passphrase. Now we do the demo. Okay, you remove the passphrase. After that, you will extract the private key. And then the public key. Okay, let's hold. Let's see the common name, 2FAssassin. Did you notice it doesn't show the top level domain? We don't know whether it's .com, .net, or .org, so this is a bad domain name. The tool will proceed to find out for you. It will try to enumerate against a list of top-level domain name, and it's found that it's using .com. After that, it will contact 2FAssassin.com, try to get the public file, try to match the key fingerprint, compare the fingerprints of the public key and the private key. If they match, then it can confirm this is indeed the true domain name for the target URL. So now you found the SSL website. You have to prepare a Windows client because P12 means it's used by Windows mostly. So we need to prepare a Windows machine and install the client certificate in order to authenticate to the SSL server. Right. We set up the SSL website. And then this is the Windows client machine. Okay, this is the domain name. We just assume it is 182. And then now the certificate, the client certificate is not installed. When you go to the site, it will give you this error message, forbidden. Error number is 403. Well, just to show you that the certificate is not installed and nothing has been transferred over. So you go to the attacker machines, you just put in one line command, and it will set up the whole things for you. You transfer the client certificate and the instruction script to the Windows system, and it will execute it. Or sometimes you have to run it yourself because the meter printer doesn't work all the time. The browser will pop up automatically, and it will go to the SSL website. And now the certificate has been installed. You can see the difference. All right, if you see the pop-up, that means the client certificate authentication has successful. This is the remote, this is the server certificate. All right, just to check the client certificate has been installed. Okay. Once you access to any machines, maybe you can add up a system backdoor before you leave. So next time when you come back, you can come back to the same system again. There are two ways to do this. You can either drop the reverse shell that can survive the system reboot, or you can add public key to every account that have been accessed. But first, you will need to create a new user, 2FAssassin, and generate a new RSA key pair, and then add the public key to every account of every target in the database. Let's do the demo. You creating the user at the background. Then you start adding the public key to every user account. Okay, let's verify. Let's switch to 2FAssassin, which is the new user. We try to do a PKA authentications to the remote server. All right, let's try the next one. Okay, it doesn't prompt for password. That means the PKA is success. Okay, you can disable 2FA on SSH. Sometimes some systems have bad file permissions. If you found SSH configuration which is writable, you can always disable key-based authentication by modifying server configurations. Impersonating SSL website. What if all the previous method failed, but you still need to hack the networks? Okay, let's bring in the social engineering. Let's say you managed to steal a server certificate. You crack the server key, and now with the certificates, with the passphrase, you can actually create a phishing site to lure clients to visit and download the malware. The phishing site will appear identical to the original site because they are actually having the same certificate and domain name. Your browser will never check for the IP address if it's different because your browser only checks the domain name and the certificate validity. So since the victims are mostly client systems, so this is essentially a client-side attacks. So this is the whole process. This is our plan. From the previous demonstrations, we know that the Windows clients will establish client certificate authentication to SSL websites. Since we have the server key, we can create a phishing site. We then perform the DNS spoofing to modify the A record of the DNS, and then force the domain name to be arbitrarily redirected to phish site. The client will then visit the phishing site and download and run the key, ended up in getting the reverse shell executed on the client system. Without doing DNS spoofing, there is no way to secretly redirect the client system to our phishing website. By the way, this is only one line command. It will set up the whole phishing scenario, like what we have planned. So let's see the demo. So this is the attacker machines, and this is the Windows system. This is our DNS, which we are going to poison later. This is the SSL website. Back to our client system. Okay, now before the DNS spoofings happen, we try to see where is the SSL website. This is the original SSL website. The IP is 182. So at the attacker machines where 2FAssassin is running, you just have to put in one line command, and it will set up the phishing site for you. Okay, you have been set up. The server key have been exported. The moment you exit from the interpreter, 3 windows will open up, each running different processes. The first process to run is the multi-handler. That will listen to the reverse shell, like the one in the right. And then there's a DNS spoofing, which using the EtherCap and also eavesdropping. So when you go to the Windows system, now you try to ping the 2FAssassin.com, you notice the IP address change. But to user, they rarely detect anything different. So when the user go to 2FAssassin.com, they didn't realize anything because the certificate is the same. The site content is slightly different, but normally the user will not detect. Okay, the user run the software, and immediately the attacker get a interpreter sessions. This is the DNS spoofed record. We did not detect anything at eavesdrop Windows because we haven't sent anything important to the Windows client. So often people ask me these 3 questions: whether having those activities can give them the private keys. The answer is straight no, because private key never left the machine. Only the public key will be sent across network. If it doesn't, then that means there's a design flaw in the network protocols. So SSH Tunnel, you can actually create SSH Tunnel using the root private key. Let's say if you have stayed inside a victim's network for some times, and I believe by then you already have compromised many machines and obtained some very important files. But how do you make sure you can walk out of the guardhouse without people busting you? The big brother maybe can stop you and take away your USB drive. Or maybe just a matter of time, they get a court order to decrypt the USB drive. So the short answer is you will need to send those files out from the network, the victim network security, while you're inside the victim's network, so you can walk past the guardhouse without worrying about anything else. If you agree with me, then you may want to create a tunnel to send out the files. So for demonstration purpose, we just create a single chain SSH tunnel. The greater the chain value, the longer the SSH tunnel. Let's say you can access the user 1, and then the user 1 can access to another user account by key-based authentication. Let's just imagine user 2 is on the internet and there's no firewall, no corporate firewall blocking the connections. Again, one line command, immediately the tunnel is created. So we need to verify. We log into the user 1 and see if the tunnel is successfully created. Indeed, it had. So let's go to user 2. Let's see if user 1 appear in the process, just to make sure that the tunnel is there before you send anything else. Yes? So for recommendations, how do you protect your keys? Don't use the passwordless key-based authentication. Don't store the passphrase on computer, and try not to use the same key or same password on multiple machines. Don't share your keys or password with anyone, and always encrypt your keys. For DNS server, considering using DNSSEC, it works by signing each DNS request with a certified signature to ensure authenticity, preventing fake requests. You may try to shorten TTL, which stands for time to life, and regularly clearing the DNS cache of the local machines, as well as those network systems. It is good if you can remember the IP address of some of the important systems, because the browser will not check the IP address changes for you. You only validate the domain name and the certificates. So maybe you can consider using host file, hard-coded IP address. So the host file is always checked first before the DNS. If you suspect your certificate has been stolen, call your CA to revoke the certificate. And also check your SSH server configurations. Well, time flies. That's all I can share for the short 30 minutes. I wish I can share other features with you, but I regret that's all the time I have. Any questions?
So any questions from the floor? Yes, we have one.
So about the SIM cloning, like are there ways to make it work? Cause I heard that, example, if you get a call from some unknown call, then you call and then you end the call. Does it figure out that you can clone the thing or something?
If you receive a call like this, try not to reply. Sorry, what's your question again?
Because I might have actually replied tap call, then hello, there's nothing on there, I just end the call. Will my card be cloned or something? I think it might have.
So, I'm not sure about that. Maybe we can discuss that offline later.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Maxwell.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.